Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the shop. In this week's video, gonna continue on my kitchen. Here we go. All right, so we got face frames together, finished end panels. We have more panels over there, more panels over there. We have more doors to cut. But yeah, made some progress this week on the cabinets. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So here we go. This is one of the fridge panels for the side of the fridge. I'm just doing a dry fit to make sure all my math was correct and everything is going to work out before I start putting glue to this thing. And didn't want to bore you guys with the whole milling process again. It's basically the same as last week, making the doors. So there it is. And then we can take it back apart and put some glue. Now I am pretty stoked with how everything is turning out, and these I think are going to look really cool. The fridge will have a cabinet up above it, so these panels are a little bit over 8 feet tall. We have a vaulted ceiling, if you remember, in the kitchen, so it's basically going to go up to where the wall meets the ceiling and starts to angle up. But yeah, got this one glued up. This is for the left side of the fridge. Just making sure everything's nice and tight. Gluing up all these doors and panels and everything. It's incredible how much material I went through, especially with having the solid wood panels and, you know, going through and picking out all the nice boards. You use a lot of material. So I flipped it over, and on the face I wanted to get that panel centered. I'll still be able to move it after glue up to get it perfect and have all my gaps around the panel good, but I like to try and get it close when we glue it up. So here is the right side of the fridge, and it's empty down at the bottom because there's going to be a cabinet there, so there was no need to use extra material just to put a panel in there. And yeah, there's the fridge panels. So this was the second load of quarter sawn white oak that we got. I still have a decent amount from the last pile, but we picked up some more this week, and I'm just going through and picking out boards for the island back panel. This is going to be kind of what you see right when you walk in our front door and from the living room and everything, and I think it's going to look pretty cool. But I really wanted to make sure I picked out some nice stuff with, yeah, some cool grain. We can go ahead and get all those parts milled up. How I would normally do this would be go through and mill up all the material for all the panels at the same time. But since I was working on this kind of just a little bit of time here and there at the end of the day and in between stuff that we have going on in the shop right now, I was kind of just doing one panel at a time. I did have these are all just my stiles and rails and stuff. I did have all my panels already milled up. So I had to just go through and, you know, mill up my stiles and rails. We can get them cut down to size, and then we'll take them over to the shaper. And I got a brand new blade on that slider, and it is cutting like butter. Nothing like a fresh saw blade. Alright, so then over to the shaper to cope my parts. And I didn't forget to turn the dust collector on this time. Last week, I think I ran 90% of my parts and realized the hose wasn't even hooked up to the shaper. There was just dust everywhere. Anyways, then we could go over to the other shaper and run the profile. And then we'll be ready to do another glue up. You see all those oak legs sitting on that other cart there? That is for another kitchen. A few weeks ago we posted that video with all those cabinets. It's for that job. We still have to make the island, and we're going to be getting back on that this week and hopefully get that thing wrapped up and delivered by the end of the week. Alright, so I'm going to lay out all my parts. I'm going to do a dry run. I just want to make sure, because I've got like 6 panels going across the width of this thing, so I want to make sure that all my, again, my math is correct, all my gaps will be good before I put the glue. And so with the way I did these, I made my panels so they are sticking a little bit proud of my stiles and rails, and I wanted that because I'm going to run this whole thing through the sander, and I want to get everything nice and flat and flush. All right, so we're good to go. Take it back apart, and then we'll start putting some glue. Just making some marks on my top and bottom rail where all the center stiles will go, so that once I get them on there, I don't have to tap them around and move everything too much. And these glue ups, I think this one took a total of like 11 minutes or something like that. So you definitely got to be moving kind of quick, you know, in case you need to move something or tap it over like I just was there. You don't want that glue setting up. But yeah, it all came together like I planned, and I think this panel is going to be really nice on the back side of the island. And then I left, the whole thing is oversized, so I can cut it down after. Make sure it's really nice and square. And then I don't really have any long clamps, so I just use the other clamp and hook onto that and get some good clamping pressure on there. So then once that glue up was done, I could cut this down to size. I didn't cut it to its width yet. I only cut the height of this thing, just because I do want to get the island together and everything, and then I'll cut it down to its final width. And it will end up being the exact size that I need, just in case I need to add a 16th or a 32nd or something. I didn't want to cut it to width yet until I get that island together, because I'm going to have to put the island, has the 2 finished end panels on the ends, and then it has that back panel on the back. It's all going to get mitered together, so I will have to attach the face frame and finished ends first, and then I can to the box first, and then I can miter this thing and glue it to the back side, if that makes sense. So that was all glued up. Then I can move on to my smaller finished ends. These would be the finished ends for the island and one of the cabinets that's up against the wall. So I put that center stile in there, get that clamped on, and then I can get my 2 other stiles clamped on. I thought this was a cool detail to have that center stile and just kind of break things up a little bit, give it a little bit of a craftsman look. And I think that we have a stain picked out, which that you guys will see in the next video, but it's going to be like a pickled oak stained, so kind of whitewashed a little bit. We're trying to keep things a little bit lighter since it is such a small space inside our kitchen. And then I went over and started pulling material from the rack, milled up a bunch of face frame parts, and I am pre-mitering the stiles that will go, or that will attach to my finished end panels. And then I can start putting face frames together. That Craig Foreman, man. One day I will upgrade to a Castle machine. But this thing I've had for like 6 or 7 years and hasn't really skipped a beat besides replacing the bit. It's really, I've gotten my money's worth out of it. We'll say that. Face frames can start going together. This is the island, the front side of the island. And then here's one of the drawer stacks. There's really not a lot of cabinets in this kitchen. We've got the fridge cabinet, the sink, 2 cabinets on either side of the range, and then the island. So it's a small kitchen. Get these finished end panels out of clamps and ready to go through the sander. Shirts are available on the website. Link is in the description down below. And this is one of the reasons I just love this drum sander. The thing is awesome. It actually really does a great job. I put fresh paper on it this morning and it was sanding really well. All right, so I'm getting ready to cut my finished end panels down to size, and then I'll cut my doors and drawer fronts down to size now that my face frames are done, and I can cut them and make sure they all fit right. So whenever I post something like cutting doors down to size because I glue them up oversized, I get a lot of interesting comments. One being, a master craftsman should be able to glue up a door perfectly square and right to size. And that's fine. Maybe you're right. I'm not saying that I'm a master craftsman at all. But I like to do it this way, and I don't think it's any slower. So if you cut all your parts and then you glue up your door right to size, before you glue up that door, you're gonna have to trim all your parts and make sure everything is perfect and then glue it up. I'm essentially just doing that after the glue up. So it's really the same amount of cutting and preparation or whatever for your doors or finished end panels in this case. It's really the same. I like doing it like this because if you glue it up and it is a little bit out of square, especially for like inset doors and drawer fronts, you're able to square it up and make it fit. So how do I make sure that my stiles and rails are the correct size? So for instance, for these finished end panels, my top rail and my stiles are gonna end up being 3 inches. So as long as my rails are the right length and my spacing in between my top and bottom rail are correct, then I'm gonna end up with 3 inches for the width of these parts. And so what I do, I take a square and I just make a line on the inside edge of my rail, and then I'll have a mark on my fence here that's exactly 3 inches away from the blade, and I can just line that mark up with that 3-inch line and make my cut, and then I have a perfect 3-inch rail up here, and then I'll spin this around accordingly and finish cutting it to size. Like I said, this is just how I was taught to build in the shop I worked at years ago, and I've kind of stuck with it. For like my larger panels, like the tall fridge panels, those, before I glued it up, I did rip my stiles to their finished width. And so with that one, I'll just be cross-cutting it, the top rail and the bottom rail. But yeah, that's how I do it. So let's cut some panels and some doors and drawers and get them fit. So there you see I made that line to the inside edge of that top rail, lined it up with my mark on the fence, and then we can make that first cut. And then I will line up the inside edge of the stile with that 3-inch mark. Now the panel is squared up. Then I will cross cut it to its final height. And I did leave a 1/2 inch on these so that I can scribe them to the floor, and then I'll rip it to its final width with the fence. And there we go. That panel was cut down to size, and then I took my fridge panels, cross-cut them to size. Like I said earlier, I had already ripped my stiles to their finished width on these, so they just needed to be cross-cut. And again, I left a 1/2 inch to the wall and a 1/2 inch to the floor on those panels so that I could scribe them. And so when I do that, my stile in the front side of the panel is 3 inches, and then the stile that goes to the wall is 3.5. And there you go. There's the fridge panel, or one of the fridge panels, and I think they are looking pretty sweet. And then I threw them up on the slider and mitered the edge. This is not the only way to do this. I was just lazy and didn't feel like setting up a sacrificial fence on the rip fence. But there is another way to miter these, but this worked really good. The panels were really nice and flat. The saw is dialed in, and you can see that cut is just right on the corner all the way down. And the miters came out really good. All right, and then I got my other panels mitered, and I could start gluing them to my face frames. So again, this is the island one. It has the 2 finished ends, and then once I attach this to the box, then I will glue that back panel to the 2 finished ends. And right here, I almost lost it. Trying to do this by yourself is a little tricky. I couldn't spread my arms wide enough to reach both of the panels and lift it up. But we got it. We did it. Close one. All right, so I put a piece of tape just to hold that finished end while I lay this thing down. This is the trickiest part about doing these miters, especially if you have like a big, tall finished end panel and you're trying to flip it over by yourself. It could be a little tricky. And so I thought I was recording when I screwed those plywood blocks on, but I wasn't. But essentially, I just put some glue in that miter, folded it, and then pocket screwed those blocks in, and it holds everything nice and square while the glue dries. And then I moved to cutting some drawer fronts and doors down. So I'm using the same method that I used for the finished end panels. And there we go. Check the fit, make sure everything is looking good. Yeah, I like it. I think these drawer fronts look pretty cool. Definitely a little different. But I'm stoked with how it's turning out. All right, so that's it for this week's video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I am getting excited about this. I really can't wait to get these into the house. We still have quite a ways to go. We got drawers to put in. I still have some stuff to do to to my face frames. I have to put some returns on the bottom where the toe kit goes. We got to LAMELLO these to boxes, sand everything, finish everything, and then we'll be ready. So maybe by next weekend we'll have these ready to at least to install. So yeah, we'll see how the week goes. But anyways, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you as always for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.